You know, I've said a lot of really dumbass things to people, whether they were friends or family members, loved ones, strangers. And I think that being insensitive is an outgrowth of being self-centered. And I think a lot of that comes from being young and believing that you're invincible and that the world revolves around you, or me, you know, as the case may be. But I just wonder these days with this AI revolution and this technology that absolutely is going to change our lives in so many ways, probably for better and for worse. The question becomes if advanced technology can do everything, you know, anything that involves a computer, sitting in a cubicle or in a headset, doing customer service, doing accounting, diagnostics in a healthcare setting, law, coding, pick another industry, especially anything to do with stuff that's not stuff you just do with your hands. For now, if AI can do it and do it better, way better than any person can, then what are people supposed to do? I mean, you hear all this stuff in the media, social media and the news or whatever, and they're saying, oh, by such and such day, 2030, whatever, you will own nothing and you'll love it and you'll be happy about it. You know, whether or not that happens, whether or not we get universal basic income, or maybe we should be asking bigger questions like, what's the point of us being here? I mean, if we just have like an overarching government that just pays for everything and puts nice soft round edges on everything so that everybody's safe and everything's gentle and there's no suffering and there's no pain. Sometimes we need something to lean up against. Sometimes we need something to push against, push us back, so we can kind of get a sense of our place in the world. And I think a big part of that is having a service mindset and not like customer service or like working at a restaurant or whatever, although those things absolutely fall into this category, but looking outside of ourselves first to see what we can do to help somebody else at an individual level instead of putting it off on a sort of faceless organization that, I don't know, it's like taking what I think is our individual responsibility to love our neighbor and to help them, and paying for an organization to do it. Hopefully they do an okay job with it. And it doesn't matter if that organization is government, charity, a church, corporation. The point is that if we try to outsource that kind of thing with the hope that it's going to ease our conscience and make us feel better because we're, you know, well, I gave money to such and such and I pay taxes, that goes into welfare or whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. You can almost be outsourcing meaning. I don't know. When you've got your head down and work, you know, where it's your job, or if you run a business, you know, like I do, it's really easy to find that time slips by, and it slips by pretty fast. Day after day slides into week, slides into month. The next thing you know, got a little gray in your beard and you're trying to figure out, you know, you say you got something to show for it, but if you're always working towards something that it's really a moving target, you might not ever hit. You know, is that fulfillment? Is that the purpose of life? Life is a journey, certainly, but I just wonder if the journey is better when you look back on it and you see all the people that you were able to help and the lives that you were able to make better, instead of the amount of money you have in your bank account or the number of cars you have, or houses or boats, or how successful you perceived yourself to be. I guess to bring this all together with AI, I think it's going to really kind of bring into sharp focus if the things that we normally do for money and for so-called success, and those things go away, what are we left with? Battery lasted long enough. Make that cut. Now we just got to see if we can push this thing out of the way. And you know, just because you're doing something for somebody else or for other people, like, I don't know, clearing the trail a little bit for hikers and horseback riders. Imagine the mountain bikers probably like to ramp over that kind of thing, but just for safety's sake, for horses and people walking. Anyway, it's not like you can't get something out of it, you know, like I'm getting some exercise. Horse is getting some exercise, even though he probably doesn't want it. The trail is clear for me. This is the first time I've taken my horse for a hand walk this long with this gear. Just seeing how it rides, if it's going to be something that'll be, you know, worth the $100 I paid for it. Getting some exercise, with sunshine. I got a purpose. I came out here instead of just trying to go for a aimless walk or walk in a circle. I had a little bit of a mission, which, you know, even something as small as doing that made this feel like a much more interesting trip for me. Another lesson, which I learned a long time ago, but apparently I have to relearn it. My right calf is starting to cramp a little bit, and I'm only halfway through this whole trip. And I learned this lesson as a skier and as a, I'm not going to call myself an athlete, but somebody who likes to do stuff outside, or at least get some exercise here and there. Should have brought something salty along, or drank an electrolyte drink, but I didn't really think about it. Last time I did this hike, I had like half a bottle of water, because yet another lesson that I learned was that well, let's just put it this way. A man walketh into the wood wearing 2 shirts. He walketh out wearing but one. What happened? Lots of little lessons, but every time you do something like this, as long as you didn't get injured, and even if you did, as long as you didn't get killed, you learned something. So we're going to take the fastest way home, and evidently this boy knows the way. He recognizes that we're headed home, so he's going to try to outrun me. A minor attitude adjustment. You know, they're not very intelligent, but they're not stupid. And if he thinks for a second that you're not paying attention, gets the feeling that we're headed back towards the barn. He's going to try to take advantage and become the leader, which is not what we want.